All right. We are going to go ahead and get started. Appreciate everybody being here this morning. I know we're probably going to have some people walking in, and we'll call them out publicly as they do. Just got to keep everybody on track. No, we won't do that. For those of y'all that don't know me, my name is Wright Ward. I'm the athletic director here. I'm in my second year at MA. It has been awesome across the board. I've got a little bit about me. I've got three littles. Kaysen, who is in third grade this year, Cohen, who is in kindergarten, and then we've got little Kinley, who runs the show at home, who's 2.5. It is a family thing, and if you've seen me at athletic events, odds are you've seen at least one, if not two, if not all three, plus my wife. So it's truly a family affair, which kind of makes, I think, ties into what MA is all about, really, right? Like it's all about family, it's all about community, and that's what we roll with. As far as our athletic department goes, just kind of an overview. Julie Gordon, our associate AD, obviously retiring at the end of this year after a historic career here at MA. Definitely sad to see her go. But the positives are she's not gone or forgotten. She's still probably going to be around because she cares about MA and she cares about the volleyball program. We did recently make a hire in volleyball, and that coach is actually here today. Yep, I'm calling you out, Coach. There she is, Coach Falcione. We're glad she's here. She's going to be stepping into that PE role as well as leading our volleyball program. Stephen Vosel, Athletic Operations Coordinator, head varsity baseball coach, head middle school football coach, and PE teacher. He does a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff for the athletic department. So we're going to talk about eligibility in some very great detail and what that means. He handles a lot of that, transportation, all sorts of coordination. That's really what falls on him. Brad Parker, coordinator of athletic performance, assistant varsity football coach, associate head baseball coach. He also works with our PE classes in grades 7 through 9 because they actually start getting in the weight room at that time. So he really heads all that up, takes that off of our PE teachers, which is fantastic. And then last but not least, if you don't know her, it's a good thing. Okay? If you don't know her and you don't really want to, okay? And I don't mean that in a bad way, it just means your kid's staying healthy. Okay? Colleen Cornish, she's our full-time athletic trainer. She's probably one of the few people that is here as often as I am. She is here a lot. So she develops fantastic relationships with our kids across the board to the point that they want to go see her just to hang out. She has to kick kids out of the training room, and I'm talking about ones that actually don't need to be in the training room. Okay? So your kid is going to be in fantastic hands here at MA as they make the transition up to middle school athletics and their entire athletic career. Some of the things that we're going to talk about today. Who here has an older child that is already participating or has participated in athletics here at MA? All right, cool. So who wants to talk? No? Okay. All right. Who's brand new? Doesn't have, yeah, first year coming up. Okay. So here's the thing. You're not alone if you're brand new because you just saw hands that have somebody that has already done it and gone through it. And they recently have gone through it most likely. Or they have an older child who's been in it for several years. All right? We're going to talk about what that transition is going to be like for them. We're going to talk about what that transition is going to be like for you. All right? Because you're not just a bystander. All right? You are going to be involved across the board. We do ask a lot of our parents. It is not because we just want more. It's because athletics needs your help. Right? Athletics needs your help. There's no way that if you show up on a Friday night to a Friday night football game and you enjoy that atmosphere, it doesn't just happen, and it is 100% not because solely of me. It is just not. It is a team effort, and families are a part of that. All right? Our culture statement. So this is something that we worked on last year. It was something that when we got here, we did a comprehensive athletic department overview with a company called Southern Teachers. And one thing they pointed out to us was we didn't really have a true culture statement here at MA. And it was really important that we develop that and try to establish that with who we want to be. So last year, spent a lot of time talking to people, figuring out what that might look like, and this is kind of where we landed. So Montgomery Academy Athletics develops leaders who believe success is built on strong relationships and a commitment to constant growth. Founded in a love for sport and the community, MA Athletics encourages student athletes to support one another in the pursuit of excellence. And then to tie that in, obviously we're the Eagles: effort, accountability, grit, leadership, enthusiasm, and service. So those are kind of that's what we really want to hang our hat on. That's what we want all of our student athletes to hang their hats on. Our coaches, right? Our entire community, when we think about MA Athletics, this is who we want to be and how we want to act, right? It's not something we just want to say. We want to embody these things. So, whoop, that's quick. There we go. Again, things we're going to talk about, but we have a athletic committee, and I asked them last year, and I got a feeling these wouldn't have changed. And I'll admit that we should have talked about it again. But these were their top 5. And as I thought about it, I really feel like these are probably still a top 5. Would you probably agree, Rebecca? All right. So Rebecca's a part of our athletic committee. The athletic committee here at MA consists of 13 parents, and it represents every single sport we have. So we're very strategic in kind of when we invite people to join that committee. It's not just open for everybody, but we do think about it. We want to make sure we've got a voice for every single one of our sports at every single level. So we want to make sure if we've got a parent, somebody who is a parent. They might be a parent of somebody that's on middle school football and varsity volleyball, right? That is covering those 2 sports, right? We want to make sure that everyone knows who that person is that they can go to, right? So if we're having something with girls tennis, and they, do they have somebody they can go speak to and that can get to me, right? That's the goal. And it's been something that for me, I feel has been just fantastic to have here at MA. And it's really for 2 reasons. One, there's a lot that as parents y'all are going to feel or go through, but you're not going to necessarily want to get that to me. And it kind of turns into, that wheel starts going, and more people start talking about stuff. And there could be a reason behind whatever it is that's on your mind, right? But you don't want to bring it to me. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, okay? I do have an open door, all right? I do want people to know they can reach out to me if they have questions. I have parents that have 0 concerns sending me an email and asking questions. But I do know there are some that do kind of hesitate, all right? And that's okay. So having this athletic committee provides parents and team parents on that group an outlet, someone they can go to say, hey, can we find out about this? Is there a reason for this? Right? And then we're able to talk about that in that athletic committee. All right? And then it goes back to the parents. Right? So it's really kind of opened that door, that line of communication for if issues arise, I can hear about it, hopefully before it becomes something larger. All right? And then at the same time, parents can hopefully get an answer a lot quicker. All right? Because there might be some rationale behind why something is taking place. The example I love to use, all right, when I was at the school before this one, we had a middle school, we had 2 middle school soccer teams, girls and guys, and the girls one season had 6 or 7 games, and the guys had 14 or 15. And for very justifiable reasons, the parents of the girls team were upset, and in their opinion, we didn't care about girls soccer. That was where it went. Like, we didn't care. Not true by any stretch of the imagination, but based on optics and what they saw, that's how they felt. And it was because of a committee like ours here that I was able to go to that meeting and say, here's why we're having this issue. And it had nothing to do with not caring. We were continuing to try and find teams to schedule with. right? The problem is that, and we're not going to get too far into the weeds, we had a middle school team in North Alabama. You don't have a lot of middle school girls teams just like we have here, right? So you end up with a lot of JV, or you end up with junior high. Junior high means 7 through 9 can play. Well, here's the problem. In Alabama high school, you cannot have a middle school team play a junior high team. So we did not end up being able to, we weren't able to schedule teams. We didn't have them. Did parents know that? No. Is that their fault? Absolutely not. But being able to have that committee and have that conversation, then all of a sudden it was, okay, that makes more sense. Now we understand why we don't have as many games and you're still trying to find them. So that's a big reason why this committee's been so huge, right? And it's great, and I love it. And we meet about every 2.5, 3 months. Sometimes meetings last longer than others, and that's okay. All right, but that's kind of the purpose. It also allows us to kind of talk about, hey, we're thinking about maybe making this shift, right, with a volunteer process, things like that. What are the thoughts? I need to know what your thoughts are as a parent, as as a member of the POA, all this. Like, I want to know, right, so we can really make a really strong decision. So, eligibility process, expectations for parents, and the volunteer process, importance of communication, the summer practice attendance, and then time commitment. Athletics at MA, okay? Our athletic department exists to support our student athletes in their holistic development, all right? So top to bottom. We want to support them in academics. We want to support them the best we can in arts. Obviously, we're going to support them in athletics, okay? All right, but there's a lot that goes on here at MA, and we want to support our kids so that opportunity can be had because we offer a lot, and as y'all know better than anybody, they want to do a lot, okay? And sometimes you got to draw a line in the sand, and sometimes that means that as a coach or the athletic department, we have to draw a line in the sand, all right? But we want to try and create those opportunities. Student athletes are encouraged to compete passionately and pursue athletic excellence, but it's imperative that good sportsmanship always prevails and that educational values of competition are emphasized. Participation in athletics is integral to the student athlete's educational experience here at the Academy. That participation carries with it responsibilities to the student athlete's team, the student body as a whole, and the larger MA community. We believe strongly in the value of multi-sport athletes and students who are not defined merely by their participation in athletics. We work to promote the entire MA community throughout our athletic department. We want to support everybody we can because our kids are doing a whole heck of a lot beyond just the field, court, pool, you name it. They're all over the place, okay? Just by the numbers, so we've got 13 sports, 21 varsity programs. In the middle school, we've got 15 middle school offerings with a minimum of 1 no-cut program per gender each season. We actually offer 3 in the fall because football is non-cut, so we count that obviously as one of our non-cut sports. 1 in the winter with indoor track, and then 1 in the spring with outdoor. All right. So there is a place for your child. There is a place for your child. Just because he or she maybe does not make a team in 7th grade, right, does not mean, one, their athletic career is over. All right. It also doesn't mean they can't try out the next year. Okay. Come back, try again. Where can you develop? Ask those questions. Where can my child get better? Right? Be willing to ask those questions. Okay. But at the end of the day, there's still going to be option that season if they want to compete that season. If they want to sit that one out and do something else, okay. Fantastic. We'll support it. All right. Participation numbers. So this is 7 through 12. 23, 24, we were around those that participated in a single sport. So at least one throughout the year was around 81%. At least 2 sports was 42%. And then we actually saw an increase last year I guess right now. I think I need to change those dates. But we were up last year 83% and then 51% in terms of our participation numbers. So that's fantastic. That's very high when you're talking about a school our size. Okay, so that is awesome. These are our athletic offerings. So in the fall, we have cheerleading, which is 2 seasons. You've got cross country, which is a non-cut, and it's 7 through 12. All right. Football, swimming, another that's 7 through 12, and then volleyball. So when we say combined 7 through 12, that means that 7th graders and seniors are all competing on the same team. Okay, we've got fantastic coaches. I know there can be some concern. Well, my 12 or 13-year-old is out there running around and competing with a 17 or 18-year-old. Our coaches do a fantastic job of creating a team atmosphere and getting those middle school kids bought into what's going on. And our juniors and seniors that have been a part of that program are incredible when it comes to being mentors for those young kids. And what's amazing to me is if you go out and you watch cross country in the fall, some of our best runners are middle school or 9th grade athletes. And it's incredible. And to me, it's really easy. It would be really easy for a senior to be resentful in some way about that, and they could not be more supportive and more encouraging of those kids. And I think that starts with them as individuals and then our coaches encouraging that atmosphere. Okay? All of our other programs are going to have a middle school JV varsity mix to it. Okay, if we don't have a middle school team, we have a JV. So your 7th and 8th might be roped into a JV team. We see that in soccer a lot. So, again, that's numbers based. What's our personnel? In the winter, we've got basketball, cheerleading again. That's part of that 2-season commitment. And then indoor. And then in the spring, that's when things get nuts. We've got baseball, golf, outdoor track and field, soccer, softball, and tennis. Softball is another one that is going to be 7 through 12 and only varsity level. Okay. Again, numbers based. That's a program that we are trying to get back and reestablish. It went away. It was here for a while, went away for several years. Now we're trying to get it back. I'll tell you what, those girls are working hard. Coaches are doing the best they can with what they're working with, but they show up every day with great attitudes and love to compete. So we're very appreciative of what's going on there. We think we feel like we're going in the right direction. All right, the Eagle transition. Okay, so this is where everything switches from rec, stuff like that, to where we are now. Okay, so middle school athletics, 7th and 8th. Alabama High School Athletic Association rules allow 7th and 8th grade students to train and compete at the middle school JV varsity level, which depends on the sport and or their skill and experience level. So what that means is that if your child, if a coach, let me make sure I'm clear with this. If a coach feels that your child is ready to play at a certain level in terms of maturity, skill level, right? Physically ready, then they might be able to play at a higher level than middle school. If the coach feels that way. If who feels that way? The coach feels that way, all right? It's very important. I know we all love our kids, and we all believe and know that they're the best thing in the world, and I got 3 of my own. But just because I feel that way doesn't mean somebody else does, okay? It's also thinking about safety. The last thing we want to do is, for prime example, you don't want to throw a 7th grader that's not ready to play ball at all out on a varsity basketball court. You just don't. Like, that's just a safety issue. And we won't even talk about football or soccer or volleyball, right? We can go down the list of sports that somebody might not be physically ready for, and we're not going to put them there, okay? We're going to do right by your kid. But if they're ready, then we're going to play them up. Girls basketball this year, we had 2 young ladies who were in 8th grade that were really our 6th and 7th players off the bench for varsity. And they could do it. They were there. All right? So it is possible, okay? Middle school athletics is about typically transitioning from same grade age division formats to being on teams of various ages, grades, as well as various skill sets, sizes, and experience levels. Okay? Again, that can cause some anxiety, not just for the kid. Sometimes it's less for the kid and more for the parent. Okay? We're asking y'all to trust us. If you have a concern, do not hesitate to take that to the coach. All right? If you have a concern about maybe where their placement is, especially if you're more, and I more say that if you feel like they're at a level that they're not ready for. Okay? Not the other way around. But if you feel like they're maybe for whatever reason they've been placed on JV and you're concerned, have that let the coach know. Like, hey, I'm concerned about the safety. I'm concerned about the physicality. Right? Let the coach explain why your child is where he or she is. Okay? Give them that opportunity. All right? Middle school athletics is also a transition to more intense practices and games. Can initially cause social and emotional conflicts for students and their parents, especially if the student is an only child. I was one of those. All right? Or they're the oldest child, which means they're the first, okay, of that family. All right? So it's different. All right? The time commitment can be different. The expectations are surely different. All right? It is no longer necessary. We're going to talk about this a little bit later. It's no longer about equal playing time by any stretch of the imagination. Okay? We do have a process when it comes to middle school athletics and what we believe in here at MA. All right? But it's not going to be equal. Okay? It's not going to be equal. All right? You can have up to an hour and a half. If it's a 7 through 12 combined program, that can be a 2-hour practice. Okay? Expectations are they're going to be there. All right? It can be every single day of the week. It's not 1 on, 2 off, or something like that. Okay? Like everything changes. Okay? We want skill development to be heavily emphasized while students begin to gain a more sophisticated understanding of strategy. We emphasize skill development at the middle school level. Skill development, to me, if you're thinking about it in terms of a pie chart, should be one of the larger pieces of the pie at the middle school level, which means that winning is not the largest part of the pie at the middle school level. That does not mean that I don't think winning is important. You've got to learn to win. But I tell our coaches all the time, okay, if you are giving up a win for the sake of, at the middle school level, trying to get kids experience and get them on the floor so they can see some live action, right? And maybe that does in some way impact a win or a loss. We're okay with that at that level. All right? Okay? We want to put kids in positions for success, but we're okay. We're okay if that happens at the middle school level because it's about development. It's about development. All right? Varsity ready. Okay? This level will strive to align with the teachings and strategies of the varsity level using age and stage appropriate tools. So everything, the goal is to get your child over the course of their athletic career ready for that varsity environment. For some, that might occur sooner than for others. For some, it might be they're there as a 9th grader and they're ready to go. All right? Our starting quarterback this past year in football was a 9th grader. Okay? He was ready to go. All right? There are some kids on the varsity football team that as sophomores aren't playing yet. And they might not play that much as a junior, and then all of a sudden they are ready for that spot as a senior. So it's going to be different for every child. Okay? Trust that process. Okay? We want them to grow mentally, to learn the game, figure out the game, learn their role, learn why it's important to be in certain spots at certain times. All right? We want to be physically ready. Okay, the goal at the end of every season is to be ready to go for that next level, whatever that might be for that child. Okay? All right, navigating a successful takeoff. Okay? Recognize and accept the shift from youth rec league to middle school. All right? We've got the increased time commitment. We talked about that. Increased expectations, and then the communication process. To me, the communication process is extremely important. And it's something that, to me, we really needed to get a handle on when I first got here. Not for really across the board. We had some programs that were doing really well. We had some that were not. Okay? It's something that we've really tried to work on. All right, so as far as coach to parent communication, all right, every single week you're going to get an email from your child's coach, all right, stating what is coming up that week. And they can send it between Friday afternoon all the way till it has to be out. Has to be out Sunday by 4 or 5 o'clock at the latest. Okay? Are we perfect? No, because I still got some coaches that aren't sending it out until Monday morning. It drives me nuts. All right. So, but it's important for y'all to know that as a family because we know your schedule and your week around what's going on here at MA. All right. So the sooner you can get that information, the better you are for your planning. And that is extremely important. We're also talking about students who cannot drive. So it is even more important that you as parents know, when does practice start? Where's it going to be? Most importantly, when is it going to end? And we have made it very clear to coaches. And if they, now sometimes, yeah, you're going to go over by a couple of minutes. All right. I think there's some grace there across the board. But if we say, if a coach communicates, we're ending at this time, then you better end at that time because you all are basing your schedules off of that end time. So it's not an option to suddenly say, well, we're going to go an extra 20 today. Because if you go an extra 20, you're getting the phone call or the email, or worse, I'm getting the phone call or the email, and then I'm the one that's going to find you, right? So we want to know, and we want y'all to know how that week's going to play out. It's also going to have, what are the games that week, right? So on Monday, we've got practice 3:30 to 5. Tuesday, we got a game at Trinity at 4. Players arrive by this time. We're wearing this. Pre-game snacks are provided by X, right? Like, we want as much information about that week as possible in that communication. And you were getting that consistently throughout the time, okay? Now, I do believe that communication is a two-way street, all right? It's a two-way street. So if there's something coming up for you, or you get a schedule, right? Summer, season, whatever it is, and you notice immediately you're going to have a conflict, let that coach know right away. Do not wait until day before, right? Or worse, day of, to send something or have your child go and say, oh, I'm not going to be here today. Like, that will send a coach through the roof. Okay, and I don't mean that in a bad way, like they're going to get upset and mad. They will, not at your child, but they're going to be frustrated with the situation. But if it's day of and you're a coach and you're trying to plan a practice, or you've got even worse, a game, all of a sudden somebody's not going to be there, you've got to completely rework everything. Depending on the sport, not having one athlete is huge. Depending on the sport and depending on roster size. Okay, so make sure you're looking at those schedules. Make sure you're communicating with the coach as far in advance and let them know, hey, not going to be there. At the middle school level, to me, I have zero issues with parents being the ones that reach out and communicate that to the coach, especially when there's a schedule conflict that you are aware of. All right, we know they're 7th and 8th graders. They're not going to know their schedules, not months in advance. Okay, I'm a grown adult, and sometimes I still will call my wife and be like, hey, do we have something today? And she's like, yeah, I told you about it 3 weeks ago. Sorry. Okay, all right, so I get it. Okay, so go ahead and let them know. Don't hesitate. Don't worry about that stuff. Coaches want to know, and the sooner we know, it's a lot easier to work with you. It's a lot easier to plan and communicate, all right? Now, when we also talk about communications, okay, part of that, too, is communications between a coach and the student athlete, right? So we do talk about, and I hit on it a lot when we get to next year and we have our preseason meetings, okay? We want to see our kids start to self-advocate. So if a young man or young woman has a question, right? And a lot of times it does come down to playing time in some way, shape, or form. 95% is going to come down to playing time. All right? We do encourage the child to ask that question. All right? Now, 7th, 8th, even 9th, all right? It can be really intimidating for a young man or young woman to go into a coach's office and say, hey, I got a question about X, right? That can be hard, all right? Let me know if your child wants to have that conversation, or reach out to the coach and say, hey, coach, Charlie's struggling with this. Is there anything I can help? I can tell him, or is there anything you can tell me Can can we meet with you together? Okay. We want those relationships to be a part of it. Okay. And I've told our coaches, we've got to allow those conversations to occur. You can't be upset because a child wants to come and talk to you, right? About anything, really. But even if you know it's going to be about playing time, like we've got to sit down and be able to have those conversations and be the adult and let the child come to us and talk. All right, because it's all about where they're going in their life as they move on from MA and they go to college and they become adults and they become employees and all that stuff, right? That's the end goal, right? We're coaching 15 to 20 years from now. So we're not doing our jobs if we're shutting a kid down right out of the gate. Okay? So we want the players to do that. We want that conversation to happen between the player and the coach. If at the middle school level it's automatic, player, parent, coach, that's okay. As long as the communication is happening, that's what really matters. Okay? If it's a larger issue after a meeting, okay, and the parent and the player and the coach have already met and it's larger, then it will get escalated. It'll be me, coach, player, parent, okay, and that's how it'll land. All right. Typically, if we're doing our job, if we're doing the right thing on our end, it rarely gets to me. It really does, which I appreciate on both sides. But sometimes it happens, and that's okay. That's my job. That's why I'm here. All right. But we do encourage your child to have those conversations. Okay. The other thing that I also always state, there's a big difference between a student athlete walking into an office and saying, I want to play more, play me, versus, hey, coach, I'd love the opportunity to play more. What do I need to work on? The end result is the exact same. The goal is the exact same. But if you hear those two statements, and one's a question and one's really more of a statement, which one are you more inclined to actually discuss? The second one. The first one's just going to be like, okay, you're going to continue with the way you're going right now, because it's not a growth mindset. It's just play me. All right. So make sure you're coaching your kids up at home, right? What's the best way to ask those questions? Because they are valid questions. I'm not taking anything away from it, but we got to have a growth mindset about how can I improve, right? And then it's on the coach. Again, we want to put your kid in a position for success. So if he or she is struggling with something in practice, right? How can we in turn trust that it's going to work out differently in the game? And if they go in the game and it doesn't work, what happens to your child's confidence? Shot. Right? So we also can't allow that to happen. Okay? So we want to be honest, we want to be upfront, all right, but we want to put them in positions for success. And it can be a balancing act at times. And middle school is already hard enough, so we understand and recognize middle school sports can add to that challenge. All right? But we want this to be a partnership. All right? It's not a one-way street, it's two-way. Okay? It's two-way. Expectations increase for player and parent. Okay? Parent volunteer process, we'll talk about that a little more in depth. Everyone is asked to work volunteer shifts for their child for their specific season. We'll talk about it more. Dragonfly eligibility. All right, we'll talk about that as well. Your child must be eligible in the platform called Dragonfly to participate in any team activities. Preseason, in-season, postseason, they've got to be eligible in Dragonfly. The increase in days per week, they're going to go typically 5 to 6 days a week. That's practices and games. Okay? Coaches, sometimes when we get into at the middle school level, you're not going to have a lot of commitment over holidays. But as your child continues to get older, expect that to change. Your child plays basketball. Okay? We've got a Thanksgiving tournament. Varsity had 2 Christmas tournaments and then made a trip up to Huntsville this past year. Also, so 3 different things all over the holiday break. All right? We don't have a fall break necessarily, but the school I was before, we had a fall break. Guess what? Football season, you had a game over fall break, you had practice. Everybody else was going and doing their trip. Football team, They were there. All right. So you have to understand those commitments and expectations, they rise. All right. Cost can and will increase. We'll talk about that as well in a little more detail. All right, volunteer process. Okay, this is where things change. All right, revenue from all gate sales are used to support all MA athletic programs, and then concessions revenue is used in numerous ways to support and foster school spirit, and that's why we need your help. Okay, yes, it is more transparency, right? It's voluntold. Okay, it's voluntold, but we need it. We need it. All right. I know we have some that they participate in a sport that doesn't have a traditional gate. I get it. You don't have gate, you don't have concessions. Why do I have to volunteer? This year we made a change. We opened up our volunteer process to all of our teams. Here's a big reason why. The sports that don't have traditional gate or concessions, they still participate in tournaments, right? That cost money because they have entry fees. Well, who's paying for the entry fees? A lot of that comes from our teams that have traditional gates, right? So we are helping all of our teams participate in athletics, and we want to be able to provide those opportunities, right? Because if not, like the school can't fund all of it on its own because the school has a lot of resources going everywhere. So we do use our gate proceeds to help with those entry fees. It also goes towards transportation. All right. We can't just go out and rent vans like we used to anymore. All right. Federal laws now prohibit that. So this spring, especially, we've got a lot of teams that we're trying to coordinate charters. Charters aren't cheap. All right. So again, that's where our teams that have traditional gate sales, that's where that money's going, is to helping those programs when we need them get to where they need to go. And a lot of our teams got to travel because we are so good. It is a great problem to have, but it's a problem. We play at high levels and succeed at high levels. We're in 7A in soccer, and we're in 7A in tennis, and our upper school enrollment this year alone, I think, is in the 352 range, right? You go look at enrollment numbers, that's like a 2A school. And we're up in 7A with schools that have 2,000 plus students. And we're still kicking butt. Boys soccer won 8-1 against Auburn last night. Okay. Like, it's a great problem to have, but it's something we got to navigate. So we have to travel to find teams and we find competition that suits our level of play. All right? There's 2 designated ways to give your time to the Eagle Nation Athletic Program. Sign up for 2 shifts, one if you're a senior, for any sport during your child's sports season. You no longer have to sign up while your child plays. We want you to be able to go and enjoy. Watch your child, okay? So if your child participates in football in the fall, sign up for a middle school volleyball match, right? It's kind of cool because you get to see some of your kids' friends doing something else they love at the same time, all right? It's also a great way to meet some people, okay? Just putting that out there if you don't know already, all right? So you don't have to sign up during your child's sport, okay? But you are asked to do 2 shifts. It can be concessions or gate, all right, for any sport. You can also find a sub using the sub list that's provided. So you don't have to work it yourself. You can call someone on the sub list and have them work for you, all right? You do have to pay them, all right, unless you send your own child to work, which is also an option. Don't have to pay them, right? They get free rent. Okay? But you can work that out with the sub of how much you want to pay them to work that shift for you and you don't even have to show up. Okay? All right? What happens if I don't sign up? All right? We do track all families who fulfill their duties, all right? And we'll follow up with the ones that do not individually. If you do not sign up, you will be automatically assigned for a shift. Highly recommend you sign up on your own because then it fits your schedule as opposed to just being put somewhere. All right. Document is created that allows the athletic department to track which families are stepping up to fill their volunteer spots, and it's greatly appreciated. All right. If a family is a repeat offender, like they just never, ever, 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 ever sign up, okay, we do reserve the right, okay, okay, to potentially deem your child ineligible for participation until the duties are met. So until you sign up, we do reserve that right. We are yet to do that. I just want to make that very clear. We are yet to do that. So don't sit here and say, well, they're going to start pulling kids right. We're yet to do it. All right, but we reserve the right to, and that's, to me, that is the worst situation you can be in, and you have been the repeat offender after years and seasons on top of seasons and top of seasons, right? So that's like the end place we want to end up. We never want to end up there. We haven't, but we reserve that right, okay? So I do want to make that clear. All right. Goals, okay? MA's 7th and 8th grade athletics program goals are to offer experienced and trained coaches, all right, who focus on building relationships and skills. Expectations rise. We've talked about that. Attendance in practices and games are required. Playing time is less about equal, more based on attitude, effort, commitment to the team, as well as skill. All right. MA Athletics offers in and off-season athletic performance training. They get that actually through PE, so they get it through the day. It's not something extra they're having to do. Our primary goals, all right? So really start thinking about this. Begin narrowing down the sports and positions that are most enjoyable. Have all players on a team be able to contribute. Teach time management skills. Bridge the gap between youth and high school programs. So we want and encourage our varsity staff to be involved with that middle school program. All right, we want our varsity coach to have their fingertips in every aspect of the program. Right? It's really we want our varsity athletes and varsity players involved in the middle school program as much as they can be. We want everybody to know everybody. Right? That's the goal. That's how you build strong programs. Okay? And then ultimately prepare for that next level of competition, whatever it might be for your child. Okay? Let me see if I missed anything here. The only thing I would say, goals are goals, okay? And we want to try and achieve them. We want our kids to achieve them. Again, just because it might not result at the start of the season in seeing your child on the floor, field, in the whatever it might be, competing, does not mean they are not growing. So always check in on your child. How's it going? How's the season going? Right? Don't pry, but just ask. Because just because your child isn't maybe playing as much as you might like doesn't mean he or she isn't happy with what's going on. So check in with your kid before you get upset about playing time, because they might be okay. All right, and if they're okay, you're okay. If they're okay, you're okay. All right? If they're not, different story. Okay? All right. My favorite, eligibility. Okay? Some of y'all that have older kids, you've gone through this. You can probably give horror stories about how much fun this is. Okay? All right, so everything has to be completed on Dragonfly to participate at any level prior to June 2nd of this year, all right, to start with summer participation. So you've got to be eligible for you can do anything this summer, all right? The required forms, you've got your medical and demographic information. That's electronic. It can be done online, okay? You don't have to do a ton of this, hard copy stuff anymore, which is great, okay? You've got pre-participation physical eval, and the examination form, okay? The pre-participation page, page 1, that is electronic. You can do that online, all right? The actual physical, that is the page 2. You have to take that to a doctor, all right? It can be your primary care. If you get in a bind, you can go to a doc in a box. You can go to the urgent care across the street, anything like that, all right? It can be either. And the things that are really, really important. 1, on page 2, it says student name, and then it's got a blank above it. Put your student's name, please, because we will reject it if it doesn't have your student's name. All right, so have the name there. All right, it gets very much in the weeds, but it's stuff you got to have. All right, so that second page 2, student's name. It's got to have the date that you saw the doctor. It's got to be signed by the doctor. And then the one that we end up having to reject the most forms for, on the page, it has next to it MD or DO. It has to be signed. So even if the doctor's signature says J. Wright Ward, MD, if I don't circle MD, that page will get rejected. All right, so you got to make sure that it's signed. All right, make sure it's signed, make sure it's circled. Birth certificate, all right, make sure that you upload a copy of that. It has to be the English translation if it's a foreign birth certificate. All right, NFHS sportsmanship certificate. Again, that's a course. I'll send out a step-by-step guide on how to take care of that through NFHS Learn. You only have to do that one time. All right, so you never have to worry about it after going into your 7th grade year, unless, unfortunately, you get ejected from a contest. Yes, we had someone get ejected from a contest this year. Yes, she played girls basketball. Yes, I was the coach. All right. I don't blame her. All right. So, unless something like that happens, all right, you only have to do it one time. All right. Concussion information, electronic form. A new form this year is the sudden cardiac awareness form. Sorry. All right. That's actually going to have to be completed every year. All right, it takes 10 to 15 minutes. These are not long, but it's going to have to be done every single year. So that's one that's going to be a pain in your rear for the next 6 years, okay? Participation, agreement, consent, release, and venue, again, electronic form, all right? We have not nailed down the date yet. It'll be mid-May. It always is, for our free on-campus physicals. Highly encourage you to attend that. All right, it's the easiest time. Typically, we start at 6, and it is station oriented, and it takes about an hour. All right, to get through all the stuff. We've got doctors. They sign off. We will hand that back to your child. We no longer keep those in house. Okay, the reason is because a lot of y'all probably have your kid going to other camps, and they need a copy of the physical. So in years past, if we kept that physical, what were you having to do before they could go to camp? Call us, get a copy of the physical, send it back to you. Just keep it, upload it yourself, and we're done. Then with the camps and other summer stuff, you've already got it. Okay? All right, so we will hand that back to your child. Make sure he or she knows that. And we are sure when they walk out, and we check with them, you got your physical? Okay, good, go. We know they took it home. Okay, so if it gets lost in the backpack, call them out. All right. All forms will be updated for the next school year after the last state championship, so they should be available come Monday, May 19th. All right, so right now, anything that's up there is for this school year. All right, so the new ones for next year aren't going to be available until May 19th. So don't go rushing to create you can create a Dragonfly account now. All right, if you go to our school website, you can find out how to do it, but there's not going to be anything for you to fill out right now. But I would go ahead and create the account so you already have it, okay? And once you create it, don't create another one. Just create the one. Don't create multiple, all right? For this year, all right, it'll either go out later today or tomorrow, our online athletic registration process. This is where you can go on and you can sit down with your child and you can see what's offered for next year. And you can go ahead and register for sports for next year. What that allows us to do on our end, okay, why is that important? It allows us to go ahead and create distribution lists in advance so our coaches can start communicating well in advance of summer. If we've got tryouts for a certain sport, we can go ahead and get that information out, right? It just going back to communication can start happening a lot faster, all right? It allows you to start thinking about what sports your child would like to potentially participate in next school year, all right? There are certain sports that we allow for dual participation in the same season, but not all right? This will close next Monday night. All right, so next Monday night is when that'll close, okay? Have that conversation. Don't just go sign up for anything and everything under the sun because you're going to get a lot of emails from sports that maybe you all of a sudden have zero interest in, right? or you had no interest in to begin with, but just went in, your kid clicked them all right? Select, right? Have conversations, talk it out, figure out what's going to work for you, all right? All right, so for sports that have tryouts, all right, so volleyball, basketball, okay? Likely baseball, though, if you're baseball, we're probably going to be shifting to the spring. Odds are high, okay? So if your child is currently in 6th grade, you've got to create the Dragonfly account, and you have to get all forms uploaded, all right? Not all, my bad. You need Dragonfly account, and then you need the physical, all right? So if you're current 6th, that's what you need, all right? As long as we've got the Dragonfly account and an up-to-date physical, you're going to be able to try out, okay? 7th through 11th who have not played a sport, okay? New Dragonfly account plus all required documents, okay? All required documents, okay? And if you're 7 through 11 and have played a sport, everything just needs to be current, all right? For most of our kids, that's already the case, all right? But it's worth double checking on your end just to make sure, okay? So who in here is current 6th? That's what I thought. Perfect. All right, so again, create the account and make sure that you have the up-to-date physical. That's all you need to worry about. Do not, correct. So again, 6th, just make sure you got the physical in there. We'll be good. As far as sports go, all right, select tryout. It's going to give you a whole list of teams, okay? But they're teams for this year, right? So your child hasn't made a team yet this year, right? Because they're in 6th grade. So just when it says sports selection, select tryout. You'll see what I'm talking about when you go in there, but select tryout. Then we know they're a 6th grader, and it makes it easier for us to go pull those, make sure everything's up to date. Yes. Yeah. You're going to need to get one. Unless you already have something at home from an annual physical, then you need to go ahead and now sometimes you need to go ahead and get one, which you can do because it does need to be a specific physical form that's been approved by Alabama High School, and that's on our website as well. What you can do is print that off, just contact your primary care physician and say, hey, we're going to be trying out for sports. Can you fill out this physical for us based on the last annual that you went to? Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Yes. Yes. Then you're good. Nope. Nope. You're good. Cheer's the one sport that's different because they have already had evals. So cheer's fine. You don't have to come back in May. Yeah. All right. Costs associated with participation. Okay. You've got a gear fee. All right. So this is the swag, the drip, all the stuff that the kids want that has no impact on how they play, but they like to think it does. All right. This fee is specific to the uniform apparel needs that are determined by the head coach and can vary per team. MA only charges for uniform pieces when the items are kept by students at the end of the season. All right, gear fees typically involve some combination of mandatory optional items to control total cost. Coaches will give a time window for these choices to be made, payment completed. Extensions are not given because they delay the delivery for everybody else. All right, we use BSN, and we've had some issues. They have not all been on us. Sometimes it's been on. A lot of times it's been on BSN. But there's things that we can do better on our end that we're working through, and I'm working with our vendor on. Um, Typically, these are my team shops. If you already have a child that's gone through it, you get it. The coach will send out an email saying the shop's open. You click on it. You get everything that you want to get. It's going to be a combination. Again, we tell coaches, you need to be very clear on what are the required items that a student has to purchase. Okay, and that can vary. That can be different if it's a middle school sport versus a varsity sport, even if it's the same program, right? We tell our coaches we do want to try and keep cost to a minimum and when it comes to the required gear because we know how expensive it is to be at MA. We don't want to nickel and dime people if we can avoid it. All right, so I tell coaches all the time, your required gear needs to be what is the minimum requirement for your season. So in basketball, that was sweats, it was a hoodie, it was a long sleeve shooting shirt, all right? And then that was pretty much it and then a program t-shirt. And that was it as far as required items went. Okay? I didn't want them getting anything else. And then this long sleeve shooting shirt doubled as that was their shooting shirt for warm-ups. They could also travel in it, right? They got to choose what they were wearing, all right? But that was it. Everything else that was on there was optional. All right, so if a parent sees a polo, you want to put a polo on there that a parent wants to get, fantastic. Okay, go ahead and do that, but don't make that part of the required piece, right? Let's try and keep those costs down to the best we can. All right, your team fee covers expenses specific to each team, depends on plans related to that team. Common examples, pregame food, end-of-season banquet, maybe travel fees such as hotel, potential team outing, bonding events. I did this past year with girls basketball. It was fantastic. We sat down with our team mom. We figured out what each team meal, how much that was going to cost, when we would need them, were we going to do any larger meals, what was a hotel, because we knew we were traveling at least once, what was that hotel probably going to be per person, right? We factored in a team bonding. We factored in about $15 for end of season, collected everything up front with Cheddar Up, and then from that point on, really the team mom, she went and did a majority of the stuff, and she just turned the receipts in and got reimbursed, right? So everybody paid everything up front. We weren't having to come back around and ask for more money, or at least that's the goal. I also don't like the fact, I didn't like having to have a team mom or a coach going to families all the time, like, oh, hey, you haven't paid for this. Hey, you haven't paid for that, right? Collect it on the front end. You know who hasn't paid. Now you can go on preseason and say, hey, we need to make sure we're getting this money in, right? So it took a lot of that exchange of checks and cash out of the equation. It took that awkwardness of a parent walking up to a parent and saying, you haven't paid, right? So it worked really well. More and more of our programs, I think, are going to start going that way, which is really good and what I want to see. All right, so that's what the team fee is when it comes to cost. All right, again, we talked about registration. Have an open and honest dialogue about what sports your child might consider for next year. Do not register for multiple sports, especially in the same season, okay? Take the time, have a healthy conversation, think about what your child believes he or she excels at, all right, and really wants to do. This also does not mean they can't try something new, right? They might be interested in trying a sport they haven't done before, but have the conversation, especially if it's a sport that has tryouts. Hey, if this is what you want to do and you're interested in, then we need to do some work, right? And if you're not going to do the work, don't be shocked if you don't make the team, right? So go ahead and lay that groundwork, because the worst thing that can happen, I think we know, 7th or 8th grade student athlete gets cut from a team and all of a sudden their world is just over. Right? There's no point anymore. I'm terrible. I'm not good at this. No. How much did you do beforehand? I didn't do anything. Okay. Well, then let's go to work and see what happens next year if you really want it. Okay? So have those conversations. All right? You can register for one cut and one non-cut in the same season. So if you were planning on, your child wants to do something in the fall, wants to try out for volleyball, but knows if I don't make volleyball, I'd still love to do cross country, select both, right? That way you're on both distribution lists, you're getting the communications, and then once tryouts take place, if she comes up short in volleyball, we go into the distribution list, we just remove you, and you don't get any more volleyball emails. Simple, all right? But just have that conversation. I'm just asking that you don't go through and, we offer 13 sports and your kid chooses 13 sports, because that's just a nightmare for everybody. And you're getting a lot of emails you don't want to get. All right. So just make sure we're having those. Cheer 2 years ago, last year was our first year, so we're going into our second. It used to be that it was a 2-season commitment and that was all you could do. All right, we've changed that now, where a cheerleader, and it doesn't apply because cheers already had their evals, but I like to communicate it just to the larger community because I don't think everybody fully understands. But you can do cheer and another sport in another season. So you could do cheer and basketball, right, in the winter. You could do volleyball in the fall and then cheer in the winter. All right, you can't do them at the same time, but you can do it one season to the next. We used to say you couldn't do it, but we have some kids that do love to cheer and they don't do anything in the fall, but maybe they are a great indoor track athlete and they love it, right? And they want to get ready they want to use indoor to get really ready for outdoor, but they also excel. They know they're not going to have the time, but they want to do cheer. We felt like we needed to make that outlet. We needed to make that available and that opportunity there. So we made that shift. Last year went really well. I think we've got maybe one or two more doing it this year. So it's a transition that for us was new, but it's been very well received. All right. Thank y'all so much for being here. I know it's a lot of information. Okay. You're going to get an email. It's actually going to have this. It's going to have this PowerPoint. It's going to have a recording of this meeting. And I'm grateful for y'all being here because that means that you have now 3 ways to know everything that we discussed. All right. I know we've been in here for coming up on an hour. Again, thank y'all so much. If you've got questions, feel free to stick around, ask. If not, I know you got places to be. Again, thank y'all so much and have a great day.